Know your forage supply, and then the next one is balance that supply with animal demand. We talked yesterday about the stocking rate and carrying capacity, and again, a cardinal rule is do not allow stocking rate to exceed carrying capacity. So you have to have a variable stocking rate. You have to adjust the demand through the year based on what the supply is. And we'll talk about ways that you do that. And this is one of the first ones. If cow-calf is your centerpiece enterprise, you should stock the ranch to your winter grazing capacity, not your summer grazing capacity. If you are stocked at your summer grazing capacity, what that means is you're going to have excess forage in the spring that you're going to want to make into hay. You're going to have no grass left at the end of summer, and so you're going to have to feed all that hay. That's what most of your neighbors do. They are stocked at their summer grazing capacity. You want to have the number of cows in your herd no more than what you can confidently expect to graze through the winter months. And if now you put up your hand and say, but Jim, I have no winter grazing opportunity, and I'm going to say, then why are you in the cow business? That is definitely stocker yearling country. If you have no winter grazing capacity, you should not be in the cow business. I'm sorry, if your great-granddaddy came in there in 1874 and started a cow outfit, he had his reasons for doing that, but it doesn't pencil to do that today. So you got to do something different. So the variable stocking rate means we have to have a change in animal population on the ranch, or at a minimum, at least a change in animal demand. Those aren't necessarily the same thing. We'll get there. So we had the stocking rate, stock density. Now we're going to talk about stock policy. So stock policy is the class, rolls into one. It's the class of livestock, classes of livestock you're going to have on the place, the number of head you're going to have, and very importantly, when are they going to be there? So this is where the flexibility comes in adjusting numbers. Now, this list here is beef animals ranked from the highest energy demand to the lowest energy demand. The highest energy demand we have in the whole beef complex is finishing them on pasture. They have that high energy requirement because it takes excess energy to create marbling. So we have to have their dietary energy level above their requirement for maintenance, growth, back fat. You will not get marbling to take place until those other three allocations of energy are taking place. So they're our highest energy animal. After that, it's first calf heifers in the first 90 days of lactation. Those females are still growing. We need them to gain body condition so they come back into heat, and they're going to hit peak lactation at about 60 days plus or minus. So we have to get them, continue to grow them, have them milk, and get them bred. So that takes a lot of energy. Stockers gaining over 2 pounds a day, and then it just works down. And the bottom two on the list is stockers gaining less than a pound a day, and then dry pregnant females. And then mature bulls would also be in that lower group there. So the basic guideline is you want to minimize the number of high energy demanding animals you have in the dormant season and maintain an appropriate level of bulls, cows, and if you're carrying over some stockers, you can get by letting them gain less than a pound a day depending on what you're going to do with them. Guess what it is with sheep? It's similar, except finishing lambs, because lambs don't need to marble. They can be finished on a lower energy level than cattle. But if we're looking at the females, it's a similar sort of pattern. So as I said, and this is I'm going to get into how we operated our farm in Missouri. Is we did consider ourselves, the cow-calf enterprise, as our centerpiece. And so we set our cow numbers based on our winter capacity. My summer grazing capacity for cow-calf pairs, because we did sometimes custom graze cow-calf pairs, I could run 120 cows, 120 pairs on that place through the summer months. 60 is what we could carry through the winter. So we had 60 of our own cows. And then to balance out feed supply, rather than making hay out of the excess forage in the spring, that's when we brought in additional animals. So our pattern of use, our 60 cows used about 60% of our total forage production. And we, through stockpiling, we stretched that 60% of our forage growth out through the entire winter. So our forage supply, we could pretty consistently graze 60 cows through the winter. And it didn't take an exceptional rain year and the best of years to do the 60 cows. That's what we could typically do. In a dry year, it's probably more like 45 cows that we could do. Then we did contract grazing. We did not buy in livestock and sell. That is one choice you can make. We did custom grazing, and about 40% of our annual production is what we could allocate to the custom grazing. And that 40% grew between middle of April and the end of July. So that is the time slot that we would bring the extra animals on. So that's the stock policy, 60 cows year round, the equivalent of 40 cows. So the feed demand of 40 cows, 40 additional cows, but concentrated into basically April 15th is when we would bring the custom animals on, and we wanted them gone by the first week in August. We custom grazed yearling steers, we custom grazed replacement heifers, we custom grazed cow-calf pairs. One year I custom grazed a herd of horses, and we did dry fall calving cows. So those were the different classes of livestock at different times that we custom grazed. The one that fit our program the best was the dry fall calving cows. All right, and so that area of the farm where the custom grazed cattle were, because we got them out by early August, we could stockpile that to be winter feed for the cow herd. So you saw, the fence and water map of our farm yesterday. So here it is again, and we basically had it in 3/3. There's 260 acres. The various timber patches took some out. We had about 225 actual pasture acres. So the way we operated, because I do not like wintering on the same ground 2 years in a row, we went into a rotation by 1/3 increments of the property. So we'll again use this 80 acres across the road. If this is the year that we're going to winter on that, that's where the custom grazed animals are going to run from mid-April to early August. The other 2/3 of the property, that's where our resident cow herd, and there were 9 years that we also had a sheep flock. We had our replacement heifers. Sometimes we owned our own stockers. All the owned animals would be on the other 2/3 of the property. The custom grazed piece would get, grazed, and it would be maybe 3 rotations that we would run through in that April to August time frame, and then we would start stockpiling it, and that's where the cows winter grazed. So the way that 80 acres was laid out. I showed this yesterday, but we had a buried pipeline on the center. There's actually a lane there, because before we put in the pipeline and tanks, the only way we watered livestock on this place is they went all the way back down to the pond. They took the alley and walked down to the pond. Then we put in the pipeline and tank system. So it's laid out that way. And each of those increments we would then, do. And when I was at home, I always did daily strip grazes out there. If I went away, I'd have fences set up to where my wife could, do every 3 days. Just take a fence down and let them go. And so that's basically how we operated through the winter. And the last few years we were there, we were, I don't remember for sure what year we quit making any hay. But if we needed hay, had an ice storm or something, we would just buy, hay from a neighbor. And, maybe there'd be 5 days, 7 days that we would feed hay in the winter when we had an ice storm. But pretty well we were year-round grazing, making no hay. So what the contract grazing allowed us to do, it let us increase our spring, early summer stocking rate with no cash outlay. And we did, we looked at the finances of custom grazing versus owning the extra animals that we brought in. If you look at a 10-year horizon, comparing custom grazing to owning the livestock, what I have seen is you will make more money over, a course of 10 years if you own the added livestock coming in, but you assume all risk on, what the market's going to do with those. And we were doing this before I even had ever heard of sell-by marketing. But it let us increase the stocking rate without the cash outlay. We made the choice of doing custom grazing rather than owning the livestock, just to reduce the risk and never have to borrow, money to buy a herd of livestock. I did not want to do that. It allowed us to keep that spring or to utilize that spring flush of growth without the mechanical intervention of making hay. And because of the custom grazing as a cash income, and so when we did the dry fall cows, we got half of the money the day the cows arrived. We got the other half the day they left. It was done on a per head day basis. We know how many animals were going to be there. So we knew exactly what the paycheck was going to be. And by getting that extra paycheck in the spring when the cows arrived, it allowed us to continue making infrastructure improvements on the property.
I'm Joel Salatin, editor of Stockman Grass Farmer. Thank you for watching this Stockman Grass Farmer video, where grass farming is celebrated for its possibilities and opportunities. You'll find more at the links here to find additional material in our library. You can see a lot of different videos and enjoy learning more about grass farming. We look forward to visiting with you more and more here as you make Stockman Grass Farmer part of your video portfolio.